The first essential in living the spiritual life is to realize God, the highest being within your system. That is first. Nothing comes before that. And that God, that being, that state that never varies, is inside your body now, this moment and every moment. It is your essential state of being. And the first task, through all the endeavors of the spiritual life, through all the battles with the self, is to realize that simple, extraordinary state inside of you. Now, it is amazing how many people have written to me and said, you seem to think that God can only be realized by making love to woman. I've always stated that you don't need to have a woman or a man to realize God within, which is the first essential task of the spiritual life. Nothing else matters. Man or woman, nothing matters but to realize God. That's why in the beginning the spiritual life is often termed by everyone to be a very, very, very selfish quest. It is a very selfish quest because you've got to battle with yourself. And I want to say now, so that I don't get any more letters or misinterpretations of my great love of the divine truth of God within me, the one and only God, and nothing else matters, that the realization of that is essential to my whole life and my whole teaching, and that's where I speak from, by that grace. Nothing else. So I trust I've made it clear. But then, of course, the people that say that then talk to me about their love life. So why is it that I talk about man and woman's love and I'm the only teacher on earth, apart from perhaps Free John? Don't know much about him, but I know that he is busy with the love of woman. Why is it that everybody is concerned about their physical, worldly love between the two genders? Why is it? Well, the story is in my own life that at around about the age of 31, I was a late starter compared with all you people, I'm sure. When the spirit, the intelligence that I now am, started to enter the very ordinary body and life of Barry Long, I had 5 years, 5 or 6 years of confronting myself, the spoiler, the unhappy one, the emotional problem maker. 5 years. And the struggle was momentous, was tremendous, just like your struggle can be. For I am no different to any man who has struggled with himself to finally overcome that troublemaker who thinks that this world is its kingdom, whereas it is my kingdom. For I am the Most High, the most beautiful, the most extraordinary thing that doesn't even exist. That's what I am, in the body speaking these words and in the body listening to these words. So let's have, and everything else is self. It was only after 5 years of wholehearted, one-pointed struggle with myself that God, through a vision, revealed the extraordinary truth to me. I am the woman that you love, said the Lord. It is I. She does not exist. That the Lord revealed that the woman who had come into my life after 5 years of struggle, that the woman that had come into my life, it is I, said the Lord in a vision to me. There is no so-and-so saying her name. There's no such thing. And out of that has come the great power, the great tantric power of love and knowledge of love between man and woman that I speak of all the time. But the Lord only revealed the Lord's enormous secret that so few people on this earth possibly know. What you love is me. There is no woman except in form. There is no man except in form. It is I, Master of the universe. It is I that you love. But only because I had realized the God within. Well, I hadn't realized it fully then. It took many years, as it takes you many, many years, to realize all the multiplicity of being that you are. For inside of you is all the truth, all the worlds, if there are any other worlds. If there's anything, it's all inside of you. This here is the extremity. Where your eyes are, that's the extremity. Where your senses are, your body, your skin is, that's the extremity of existence. There's no more. You can't go out any further. Within that system that you are, going down like a cone goes right down to the point of eternity. And who knows? It might even cross over there and start to open up again and get broader and broader. Who knows and who cares? As long as it's there. And I can tell you, it is there. For I am there. And it is there. Never ending, forever, ever, extraordinary, amazing life. For God or truth, whatever you like to call it, doesn't matter. The fact is it never ends. So I am in a very privileged position, having been informed by the Lord itself of existence, that what is in the woman that I love, and therefore in the man that I love, if I'm a woman, or if I'm a man who loves a man, or a woman who loves a woman, what I love is the Lord, who is androgynous, who has no gender, who is just some extraordinary, amazing thing, incredible just doesn't exist to our senses. Or our minds. But I say again, the first thing is to realize the Lord, the God, the love, the truth within your body. First. Now you will notice that when you go into partnerships between a man and a woman, you will notice that there is enormous pressure put on yourself. And yourself is the only barrier to realizing the great God within you. And relationships give you the opportunity to confront that self more than possibly anything else, because living consists of relationships, and not even necessarily relationships between man and woman, but relationships between events, conditions, as well as people. That's what it's here for. That's what existence is for, so that you may confront yourself. But particularly in the love between man and woman, the great struggle to find an untroubled love between the two. It does not mean that you have to realize the God within you first. It only means that that is the first task as much as possible, because when you're battling with yourself in your relationships, you are in fact removing the barrier to the realization of the God or Lord within you. So it's not two different processes. In the beginning, before you, even in the beginning when you have your first relationship, like I was with my dear first wife, and we were living an ordinary life, when the Spirit started to enter me, it became a hell for us both. But the Spirit started to enter me to confront me with myself in that relationship. It wasn't her fault. It was myself that I had to confront. And she was just a mirror for that. But in that way, in that relationship, and when that relationship ended, and I was with this other woman that I was telling you about, that the God revealed itself in, that and the struggle and the doubts and the fears of myself, the struggle with all that, that was purifying me of myself, so that I would eventually realize the Supreme Being, which I did several years later. So one does not exclude the other. It's just that when the other comes first, as it did with me, and I had to struggle with myself, but still in a relationship, mind you, with my first wife, eventually I loved God so much through that struggle of those 5 years that God came in the form of a woman. Well, what other form would it come in? Only a man for a woman, or a woman for a man, so that I might confront myself more and more and give up myself for the sake of love. So please, would you please hear me? Would you please hear me? The first task of the spiritual life is to realize the love, the God, the truth inside of you, which is the living God. The living God is inside of you. That is the first task. But if you encounter a man or a woman in existence, and you go into relationship, then that is a contribution towards that first task, yet at the same time is a contribution to the task itself presented by that relationship, which is to learn how to love, to give up yourself for the sake of love, so that you might be discerning and discriminating of what is the difference between sick, sentimental, troublesome love and pure divine love, which is possible between man and woman if we will only give up our love of the pretty woman on glossy magazines, the beautiful film star, that we do not know what she or he is like inside themselves. We do not know. We have to have the discernment in a relationship before it even begins where I come from, to know whether there is love here, whether there is sufficient love of God. Now, sufficient love of God is sufficient willingness to die for love and to give up your own wants, your own trying, your own self. That, to me, is the beginning of love. And anyone who wants to do it their way is going to be a very poor love. Because the whole idea of love that leads to love is, I surrender. I do not surrender to fools. I do not surrender to emotion. I do not surrender to anyone else on earth. I surrender myself, though. I give that up to the great God, to the great being within me. I give it up. That's what you do. And that gives discernment and discrimination and the ability to see straight instead of round and round in circles emotionally, blaming and accusing, being unhappy, causing trouble to yourself, causing trouble to others. That's what emotional perception is. You center only on your own pathetic problem instead of the problem. Every bit of emotional pain that I have is my penetration of myself, the hitting up against the armor plate of myself that wants something different to God and rightness and truth and love. It always wants to do it its way, and you cannot have your way, myself. You cannot have your way and be holy and realize God. You just cannot have it. But then yourself is the guardian of the threshold to pretenders, to intellectuals, to people who think they can do it through reading about it instead of living it. The self will never let you cross the line. It will always be there to plunge you into unhappiness, to think about suicide, to think that you're finished, to break your heart. Your self will always be there, stronger than you are because you're not one-pointed enough. You don't love truth enough. And it will withstand the intellectual pressure, and it will put pressure on the intellectual until the intellectual thinks they're going to go mad with the burden of your own self. That's the good of the self in the overall scheme of everything. You shall not pass unless you are one-pointed and unless you love me enough. Not just love me. Oh, how we all love each other. How we all love to say it. How I've heard it so often. Oh, but we love each other, but we have problems. If you truly loved each other, you wouldn't have any problems. Your problems are yourself. And you must give up yourself. There is no other way. But apparently in the New Age, and when I look through the magazines, there's so many ways to God. And I'll tell you the only way. I'll tell you the old-fashioned way that's been like this ever since man craved for something real. The only way is to die to yourself. And it is so painful. You can't get a quick fix. You just cannot. Even if you were to realize that I am Jesus Christ. If you could realize I am Jesus Christ, do you know what would happen? Wonderful exaltation, right? I am Jesus Christ. But what you don't realize is then you've got to climb on the bloody cross and get nailed up. Because it's not that easy. You don't get anything easy. Just by realization is not enough. You then have to live the realization. And don't worry. Life, or the great God that is behind it all, will make sure that you do. That great God which is in charge of all circumstances, everything, by its miraculous intelligence, without doing or being anything, it somehow or other determines for each individual, 6 billion of them, the different circumstances that are necessary to bring about that divine will, whatever that is. Isn't that incredible? It's just as incredible as the wings of a butterfly, isn't it? In its own way. If we could only stand back and see the wonder and beauty of it all, we would see the butterfly wings in the suffering of the people. Because there's no one suffering but myself. Do you hear me? No good being sorry for yourself, because yourself is the suffering of the world. The world is yourself. Yourself is the world, right? One is an image projected by the other. Boom, boom. Complete reciprocal of each other. The earth is made by God, this vast intelligence that made the butterfly and kept it as a part of the whole echelons of life, all working beautifully together, all devouring each other, living off each other's forms, and yet at the same time perpetuating the extraordinary beauty of it. The earth is made by the great divine intelligence which never did anything yet and never will, but by its very being creates such beauty and such wonder and such integrity, where everything works in the midst of chaos. It still holds together and works. What an extraordinary brilliance. That's the divine being that's inside of you and inside of me. That is the earth in all its beauty, its floods and its droughts, its rain and its pounding waves and storms and all the rest of it, and its dying birds and its dying men and its dying women. Oh my God, what an extraordinary chaotic situation, and yet it all comes together. It's all wondrous. But imposed on the earth and imposed on that beauty of life and death which has to be, to keep the cyclic nourishment and purity going, imposed on that is the world, made by man and woman and their dreadful selves. You and I made the world. You and I made all the suffering that I've spoken about. You and I made the child die. Die? Yes, because death is only a reflection to someone of pain. The mother of the child weeps and cries for weeks or months, afterwards for years. Why? Because of herself. That's why we weep and cry for the dead. It is our self weeping and crying that knows no truth. For the truth is that death is necessary. It wouldn't happen if it weren't necessary. For God's sake, everything that happens is necessary, surely. Or what are you going to tell me is necessary? Only that you win the lottery and that you don't lose. Everything that happens is necessary, or it could not be. It is because God, the knowledge of God, has been buried under ourself, under the world. And everything must die. Even if it is my child, it must die if it must die. If it mustn't die, it doesn't die. You get it? I want you to see the broadest picture of this extraordinary life. of which living is the world. Living is myself is living. There's only myself living here. This is myself talking. The only thing is that myself is one through love with the Most High, the Supreme Being. So myself is utterly surrendered to that. And so this great integrity can speak as much as it wills through myself. And that being directs the life that I am. For I have no life of my own, because I have no self of my own which is against the divine will. Because I am self, but I have no self that is opposed to the divine will. What happens is the divine will as far as I'm concerned. I have no complaint with it. I don't fight it. I don't want to fight it. I don't want it any other way. I want no existence, thank you. Thank you, God. I have no existence, thank you very much. I want no will. I want to want nothing. And I want nothing, for everything is provided for me. For this little self, everything is provided for me. Ah, what a relief. Oh, I didn't have to do it my way, but I did have to do it my way for 31 years. And then I struggled to do it my way for so many years after that, still struggling a little bit less and a little bit less, until I gave up by divine grace.